All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Soda Citizen podcast. Today, we are really excited to have Carl Blackstone with us. He is the president and CEO of the Columbia Chamber. So welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So you want to
kick off
the questions?
Ooh.
Go for
All
it.
right, I think it's always best to assume nobody knows anything, right? At least me, because that's how I go into things. So help us out with the Chamber. We hear a lot about the Chamber. We're in business. We tend to know more than the average bear. But people listening, what is the Chamber? What do they do? What's their calling?
Yeah, well, thanks. So chambers have been around for forever, it seems, and every town's got one, but they're all different. And the Columbia Chamber has been around since 1902. And it was formed by a bunch of business folks who just said, you know what, we need to align our interest really as a trade association in the barest minimum of ideas there. But the idea is, look, how can we promote one another? How can we promote business? And it's grown a little bit into today's chambers really are designed to be community leaders, to be thought leaders for the business community, to help think at the 30,000 level foot on a lot of ways. And so we're a regional chamber, which means there's no distinction. You don't check a box to say what you are, but we've really morphed into a chamber that we have companies within 6 counties around Columbia, not just Richland County. And there are a lot of cool smaller chambers within our footprint as well that do great things in their community. West Columbia and Casey or Irmo or Blythewood, they all have roots back to us in some ways, but they have they're unique to their geographic footprint.
Sure.
And so I think it's important for us to delineate a different value, right? I mean, we all have an ROI that we have to present to our clients and our customers. It happens to be for me and the Columbia Chamber, our 1,200 partners that need something either from us or through us.
Right.
And it's we get small businesses, we got large businesses. And so for us, it's really about looking out for the best interest of the business community here in the Midlands.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
So can anybody join the chamber? Does it matter if you're a business of 2 employees or 2,000?
We take them all.
You take them all.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do it. And it's a big distinction because you got your big businesses that really, they don't need us necessarily to promote their business, but they need us to step in and make sure, for instance, looking at public policy and making sure that our elected officials are looking at things through the business lens.
Sure.
You got your small businesses, your mom and pops that need help B2B. They need to help show brand awareness and really help expose their business to a larger market. And so we try to do it all.
Yeah. So talking about somebody our size, we have, 8 to 11-ish employees. What resources can the chamber have to help us? So I'm assuming it's sort of an association where you help us in the political front a little bit, but also like you said, everyday B2B kind of business. What's out there for that?
So a lot of connections are made through the chamber, whether it's through committees or small groups or after hours and all those things. But we also have some strategic things. We're morphing as well into this virtual world that no one knew existed 6 or 7 months ago. And for us, it makes it a little bit more challenging. We're having to be more creative in how we do the B2B stuff. The smaller, more retail partners like to think of, love the interconnectivity, the face-to-face stuff. But providing resources, whether it's content, whether it's classes, whether it's speaker series, whatever, we can do that. More granular though is having opportunities to highlight businesses through a portal, or if we are having a face-to-face, spending a few minutes with each of the companies that are located. Hey, let's talk about your business, what you're doing, because knowledge is key, right?
Absolutely.
And I take it for granted, but a lot of folks that are getting in the business world, they don't know how to promote their business. And that's an art, quite frankly, that we're all trying to do a better job of. But it's a litany of things.
Sure.
But big piece, though, is what I've been trying to focus on is the public policy.
Absolutely.
And where we can really see some improvement here in the Midlands.
That kind of leads me into the next question then. So we've had some great developers on here, Robert Hughes and Will Brennan and Frank Kaysen, and obviously the real estate background on our side. So what is drawing people to Columbia, do you think? Because it's maybe not apparent. We were talking a little bit earlier about we're kind of a sleeper town for a number of reasons, but what's bringing those people in, and are they coming, I guess?
Well, I think it's multifaceted. I mean, I think COVID has helped change it a little bit. It started, if you really want to go back into the 1930s,
Sure.
after the Great Depression, you saw a migration from the rural communities to the urban markets, right? And that has continued. That's not changed at all, except what happened in the Great Recession. And then that market changed. Companies started relocating to places where there was a workforce.
Sure.
And so you saw a movement to make Charlotte, Atlanta, DC, New York, Boston, Philly, all bigger. Right. And think of what Amazon did.
Yeah.
Where did they recruit, and where were they looking to locate their facility? To big markets, because it was easier to
Absolutely
get a workforce. Columbia has not changed all that much in size over the years. In fact, in 1950, Richmond, Raleigh, Columbia, Charlotte, Atlanta, Austin were all about the same size.
That's crazy.
They're southern capital cities. And, Charlotte took off. Austin took off. Atlanta, different sphere. But 1980, Richmond, Raleigh, and Columbia were still relatively the same size. So what's the difference? I think there was a forward thinking in their community leadership. I know in Raleigh's case, they doubled down on the Research Triangle Park. And I think you can't change the past, but I think looking back, where there maybe today we would have made some different decisions. I'm not looking to be a Raleigh or Charlotte or Atlanta. I don't think that's the case at all. We need to be authentically Columbia, right? But what we do have is we have personality. We have quality of life here that's really strong and good. We got property values that are comparatively in the United States really good.
Absolutely.
And people like to live here. We have access, which is hugely important.
Right.
And so there are a lot of things that people come here for USC or the 5 other colleges in town, and they just want to stick around. They like it here. So, but I think the biggest driver is quality of life. But you're going to see that trend. COVID is changing the game, right? We're seeing more people migrate down.
Absolutely.
It's going to be one of those delineating moments in our lifetime of what has changed, and we're going to see growth. The growth in the South has been going on for years.
Right.
This is going to be significant.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a buddy that sells in Chicago, and as of July, he had zero inventory. He was scrounging, and he's the number 1 agent in Chicago. And now he's like, I have 150 listings. Like, people are moving out of Chicago. He's like, it's unprecedented. Like, he's like, I'm turning stuff away.
Well, you look at all around South Carolina, average home prices up 44%. You got days on the market are lower, inventory's less. I mean, to me, it's fascinating and somewhat bewildering, quite frankly, that somebody's going to look online, pick a house, buy a house, sight unseen, and all they care about is the roof color or how many bedrooms, and they don't. That's unique to me. It's foreign, right? But it's good. But that's a sign. I mean, where real estate has always been an indicator, it's more so today of price, market, and it's showing that our economy's got great potential.
So I'm curious, if somebody was listening to this and they're thinking about starting a small business here in Columbia, like, what are, 1 or 2 little nuggets that you think they should know?
Well, there's a lot to know, and I'm probably not the best one to ask just for individual business, but I'll say this. You got to know your stuff, right? I mean, you got to know what it takes and the cost and the costs that you know about, and then you got to do your research to find out the costs that you don't know about that are always there. But one thing we've learned during COVID is it's highlighting those companies that are well managed, and because it's unpredictable marketplace we're in, you got to make sure you're making sound business decisions. Just because it sounds good doesn't always mean it's going to be good. So you got to do your research and make sure that we've got a marketplace that's expanding. Perfect. That's a good time to get into the market, right? But you also got to look at your competition. You got to look at where do you have a niche? Because those that are doing well right now are doing well because they've really developed a niche.
Absolutely.
So that would be if you've checked those boxes and you're ready to go, awesome. Find out where you're going to be, because we are uniquely defined by towns or part of towns, or you got to do a little bit more digging these days to make sure you're putting yourself on the right foot to move forward, because this is a interesting time.
Yeah.
Have you seen any like cool success stories? Or, I mean, everybody kind of freaked out when COVID happened, and I mean, ultimately business isn't too bad. I mean, some industries, obviously restaurants and stuff like that. Have you seen certain like sleeper industries that have come out and been like, man, we just crushed it because of COVID? Or
there are a bunch of those. It's, I mean, I think of any person that's not done a home project in the last 7 months.
Put in a swimming pool. You can't get a swimming pool put in to save your life right now.
Months on a wait list. I needed gutter work, and it's taken me 3 months to get a gutter installation process going. So home improvement stuff's gone through the roof. You can't get your back ordered on refrigerators, anything like that, right? Which is, nobody's going to start up a manufacturing plant for refrigerators. I get that. But it's thinking at what else do they need, right? And so home services are huge. I think one of the best pivots that have been, and that we've seen some stories about it, but Zverse has been a local printer, 3D printing company. All of a sudden they're printing face shields. Awesome.
We bought 10 of those, actually.
Did you?
We did.
I mean, they've manufactured millions of those things in a few months. It's great. You know, not just for COVID, but we have some great sleeper companies in the Midlands. Even one of my favorite stories is a company called Sornex over in Lexington. And it was started by a guy who was a coach in high school and over in the Irmo area. And he started making gym equipment. And it's been I would think they would even say a fledgling business for a long time. And all of a sudden they're in gyms all around the country. They're in 25 NFL team gyms, all based in Lexington right now, but it's huge. I mean, in Music Stars, they do stuff for the military. They do stuff for college athletics. Great business. It's not an overnight success, even though they put in a new building but they've been at it for 30 years. I love hearing those sleeper stories, but we've got a lot of those in Columbia, quite frankly.
That's what made me I'm not excited about the pandemic. Trust me, it freaked us all out, but I was like, there's gotta be avenues out of this thing that makes us even better. Or, I mean, we're opening an office as of 2 days from now at Lake Murray. So we're expanding to take advantage of the market and also to be community resources to that community, not trying to be that from downtown Columbia. So, well, I got the dreaded question of cranes, right? So we have an office in Greenville. They're 2-3 days a week, cranes everywhere. Charleston, cranes. Nashville, their state bird is now the crane, right? Like it is just like, we haven't seen one in Columbia in 10 years. Is that a good litmus of like what our big business is doing? Or are we the sleeper community? It's like, hey, don't worry about that because what's going behind the scenes is.
I think is actually fair. All right. I mean, you look at 2011 through 2016, was in the center of the longest economic expansion in our nation's history, which started in 2008, right? We went 11 straight years, 44 straight quarters of growth. But between 2011 and 2016, Richland County had a negative job loss, okay? We're the only urban market that I'm aware of during that time that had a job loss. Since then, we've seen about 6 headquarters leave town. Now, companies are still here. The job losses were not significant, but the impacts are. And I can't emphasize enough the need to have headquartered companies in Columbia because the investment into that local economy is greater when the headquarters is here, right? And domiciled there because the executives get involved. And so philanthropic giving. So yeah, we're in a challenging time there. Again, the job losses have not been astronomical. In fact, our job losses have been on par with other peer cities. The difference is we've not put more in the funnel on the front end. And so they shake out and just normal business cycle does have an impact, we're going to lose jobs. But we've not put enough in to really keep up. And so that's got to be a primary focus of our leadership in both the city and the county going forward. We need economic development as the driver of a lot of things, right? What else is a driver? Education, strong schools really drive home prices. It drives growth in companies relocating. And so there's no magic bullet to anything. It's a number of things you got to do well to see the long-term impact. And so cranes are visual. People see that when they're driving through or the lack thereof.
Right.
Charlotte had 14 at one time. We had one for a little while when they were changing the air conditioning unit on a tall building, but that was it.
We'll take it.
I would argue it doesn't count because it counted for that day. But yeah, we've got to see, and we're in this unique time now where the commercial market space in Columbia is pretty high in occupancy. This pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, we were really not over 90%. The problem is the rents were far less than what it would cost to build.
Sure. Yep.
So about a $10 delta there. So rents are going to have to go up before we can get enough demand to really build new office towers.
Sure.
We'll have to see what happens going forward with COVID, but there are some opportunities. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, we've got one of the strongest insurance tech markets in the country. And I think there's plenty of room for growth there.
Right.
We are sitting in a beautiful setting downtown on Bull Street campus. This is prime for new development. Yes, there was tax dollars involved, but in the overall, in 20 years from now, I think we'll look back and say this is a good use of dollars.
I agree.
Because of the growth that we're seeing from Capgemini to REI, name it. That's just the beginning.
Yep.
And so that downtown corridor is really growing, we need that, right? You got to have a solid core if you want a strong body.
That's right.
And I think that we're well on our way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess I'm just curious. I know you don't have a crystal ball and COVID has definitely made things interesting, but where do you see Columbia in the next 5 years, business-wise speaking?
So I could have answered that fairly easily 6 months ago. Okay. We're all taking a little stutter step right now as we realize, I think it's still really good. I mean, I think the outlook is extremely good for Columbia. One, size helps us here. We don't have the traffic woes, and we have people. And so I think companies after the Great Recession wanted to relocate to where there was talent. Well, we have talent.
Right.
We have 6 universities and colleges here in the Midlands. If you can come here and take advantage of the timing, I think you'll be in good shape. So we need to market ourselves to those companies that want to get out of the urban areas. They don't want to sit in traffic for 2 hours a day. I mean, given a choice, right? If you're sitting up in the Northeast right now and you hadn't been in an office in 7 months, you haven't walked out of your apartment complex in 7 months, you're looking for a new home, we're here, right? We're open for business. Yep. It's a good market to be in with a lot of amenities. So that piece is great. And I think we'll capitalize there. Right. But a lot of the growth that we'll see and that we have seen over the last 10 years is all due to the university.
Yeah.
And we've been blessed to have USC here, and they've grown a bunch, and we've grown in the ways of hospitality and retail. Now we've got to pivot a little bit and say, let's look at economic development in the sense of brick and mortar jobs, tech jobs. Yep. But let's grow the economy.
Yeah. And that starts with, obviously, like you said, a good educational basis. So you have the people to employ when those hopeful headquarters come here, correct?
Correct. I mean, and that takes a little bit of time to develop. But the good news is if it's a trade, we've got great programs at Midlands Tech, and we can work with a company that needs to quickly train a workforce. We've got all the litany of programs, and we got the Darla Moore School here.
Right.
I mean, right? Number one business school in the country here.
Yeah.
Well, let's take advantage of it.
Sure.
So I think we see significant growth in retirees out of Fort Jackson.
Yep.
And you hate to think Jackson is a great facility, well-run facility. We don't see it every day.
Correct.
I mean, unless you're driving around on that side of town, you don't see it because the troops are stuck on post.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is a huge engine for us. It's probably military's got about a $4 billion impact on our community every year.
Wow.
So we have pre-COVID, we had about 5,000 people visiting Columbia every week just for Fort Jackson.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So we see a ton of people want to retire and stay here because of what we offer here.
Yeah,
And
we get
so-
a lot of people that were here, transfer out, and they come back here to retire. Not just last station at Fort Jackson. Like they come back from wherever they were. Like we want to be in Columbia. I was like,
You know, it's funny. Obviously, I do a ton with Jackson, and we pride ourselves in being the most military friendly community in the country. And it's a tagline in which I love to promote, but at the same time, you got to earn that. In my opinion, you just can't.
Throw it out there.
Right.
Yeah.
and we do a really good job there. We're the largest training base in the country at Fort Jackson. I mean, they graduate, 1,000 a week out of Fort Jackson to be our armed forces. And so if we do a good job, and that's one of our missions at the Chamber, to make sure that we not only promote Jackson, but also make sure that we're the welcoming committee.
sure.
That it started, actually, one of the things I mentioned, what started out of the Chamber, 1916, 5 business leaders at the Chamber raised $50,000 to recruit Jackson here. So one of the, talking about a public-private partnership
Right.
that's paid off, $50,000 in 1916 to a $4 billion contribution every year.
Yeah.
I'll take that every day, right?
Thank you.
So that taught, that was foresight. That was having strong leaders come up and say, "Hey, let's have a plan." It didn't pay off the next year.
Right.
You got to think strategically, which, part of our job really needs to be focused on our leadership and making sure that we have the best interest of our community, not the best interest of them,
Right.
at the forefront of their minds. And so, good leadership can get us where we need to be.
Absolutely. So with that, we appreciate your leadership in the Chamber and doing everything you do to help promote small and large businesses. Because it's honestly, it's that circle. It's the jobs, it's the businesses, it's the education, it's everything. And somebody's got to be watching that, because you're right. Everybody's just looking out for their piece, and we need somebody looking out for all of it. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for, it's important. And I think with the focus there, I'm really bullish on what's coming on.
Good.
Good. That's exciting.
We'll back you. If you need 50 grand for another Fort Jackson, come talk to her.
Absolutely.
No, but thank you so much for joining us. And I hope everybody enjoyed listening to this conversation, and will subscribe and continue to follow our podcast, The Soda Citizen. And as always, if there's anything we can ever do for you or any of you guys out there, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at The Art of Real Estate.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.